Incredible moment exposed. Disabled girl's touching plea sparks surprising billionaire transform. Mia sat in her wheelchair, a wooden table before her cluttered with colorful display boards and scientific paraphernalia. Today was the science fair, an annual event that brought together the bright minds of her quaint Midwestern town. But the buzz around her felt more like a weight than a thrill. She glanced at her makeshift poster, her fingers tracing over the words molecular biology, the building blocks of life. The moment she had dreamed of was here, yet dread coiled around her gut. Did anyone see her? Did they look past her limitations to recognize her passion? With a deep breath, she willed herself to face the crowd, a mass of uninterested parents, peers, and judges. Each disapproving glance stung like a bee. She could practically hear their whispers. Should someone like her be here? They didn't know her. They didn't see the long nights spent researching in her worn textbooks, or the experiments she'd conducted at home with whatever she could scrounge together. To them, she was just the girl in the chair. Every ounce of courage felt tethered by her insecurities, wrestling with the storms of disappointment that had long taken residence in her heart. Could she truly make a difference? As the event began, Mia's mind raced. No one could truly understand how it felt to grapple with the weight of expectations, especially when mixed with the pressure to succeed against a backdrop of subtle discrimination. She watched other students stand confidently at their projects, crafting charming narratives, their voices flowing smoothly. Why couldn't she be like them? The harder she fought against self-doubt, the more the shadows of doubt crept in, whispering, "You're not enough." Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Mia's thoughts spiraled, threatening to swallow her whole. Would anyone care to listen, or would they see only her wheelchair, not the fire within? As she contemplated her so-called speech, she considered the possibility of failure, of stuttering through her words while the audience snickered or looked away in sympathy. But standing behind that table was not just an obligation. It was a testament to her tenacity. She envisioned taking the microphone, her voice breaking through the chatter, a pitch that echoed her aspirations, her dreams for a future propelled by her love for science regardless of others' judgments. The clock ticked down, each second amplifying her turmoil. Just as she was summoned to present, she felt an unexpected twinge of hope. There was a flicker in the faces watching her. It might even be curiosity. The uncertainty of her own worth screamed for validation against the tide of societal bias. If she faltered now, would anyone remember her passion, or would she vanish into the shadows of obscurity yet again? As she wheeled herself forward, the weight of expectations pressed upon her. Her heart raced, and she couldn't tell if it was from excitement or sheer terror. With every inch closer to the crowd, anticipation clashed violently with fear. This was it, her moment to shift perception. But what if nobody cared? What if her voice was drowned in doubt? Just then, she caught sight of a figure in the back, a man she didn't recognize, and all she could think was, would he ever understand the enormity of this moment? The silence stretched before her like an abyss, unsure of what lay ahead, but certain of one undeniable truth. She was at the edge, and she couldn't step back now. Mia took a breath, steadying herself as she gripped the edge of the table. The fluorescent lights above hummed, casting stark shadows across her display. She caught the glances of some students, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, and she felt the urge to shrink back. Instead, she locked eyes with the unfamiliar man in the back. Something about his gaze held her, almost like he could see through the veneer of her wheelchair and straight into her heart. "Hi everyone, my name is Mia," she started, her voice a wisp that barely cut through the silence. Instinctively, she looked down, fearing the reactions that might come next, but she pressed on, forcing her voice to continue steady. "Today, I want to talk about molecular biology, the building blocks of life." Every word felt like a mountain to climb, yet as she described the intricate web of molecules that constructed the world around them, something shifted in her. Each detail she explained drew her further away from the edge of doubt and toward the realm of possibility. With every concept she shared, from DNA structures to the role of proteins, her hands animatedly gestured, telling a story that came not just from the textbooks, but from her spirit. To her surprise, she stumbled upon her own enthusiasm. Each fact felt layered with a purpose, awakening a passion she had tucked away for too long. Boiling lava surged within her as she unveiled her project's intricate model, built painstakingly from recycled materials, an embodied metaphor of resilience. Suddenly, she was not just Mia in a wheelchair, she was an advocate, a scientist, a dreamer speaking with conviction. The whispers from the audience transformed. Instead of mockery, there were nods of intrigue. The smiles on some faces filled Mia's heart with warmth and shattered her previous expectations. The unfamiliar man seemed to lean in, engaged, perhaps even impressed. In that moment of vulnerability, she discovered strength, her determination shining brighter than the harsh fluorescent lights. But just as she began to feel truly accepted, a voice piped up from the crowd. "What do you know about real experiments?" a peer challenged, spitting the words out with a condescension that clung to the silence that followed. Mia's heart sank. The man's gaze shifted, and doubts crept back in like shadows threatening to cover her. Yet instead of retreating, she felt a flame ignite, unignited by the previous words that had the power to silence her. She focused on what she knew and had lived, experiences others couldn't begin to fathom. "I know that science isn't just for those who can run labs or stand on their own 2 feet," she shot back. "It's for every mind, every curious soul. It's about asking questions, making connections, and solving problems, and I align with that mission." As the honesty of her response hung in the air, a double-edged sword of tension and relief surged within her. The crowd quieted, absorbing what she had just shared. Mia sensed not only her voice gaining strength, but a shifting perspective from the audience. Perhaps they were starting to see beyond her wheelchair, to the ideas and passions that coursed through her being. With every passing second, she could feel her stature rising, not in physical height, but as an emerging force against the tides of bias. As her time wore down, she looked once more toward the unfamiliar man, and for the first time she found clarity in his expression, an understanding that she had something vital to offer. When the time to conclude her presentation came, she paused. This was not the end. It was merely the tipping point for what she could achieve. Then came the thought, a flicker of insight that perhaps she was meant to shape this narrative even further. "And if you think about it," she finished, "biology isn't just about molecules, it's about life, resilience, and a little bit about breaking barriers." With that final statement, she rolled back, her heart racing, aware that this moment was merely the prologue to a larger journey ahead. And as the audience clapped, the once familiar shadows of self-doubt seemed to retreat, replaced with a glimmer of possibility. Would she conquer the challenges that awaited her after this moment? Would she have the courage to venture into the world of scientific inquiry and advocacy? The truth was unraveling, but was she willing to cross that threshold into the unknown? The anticipation was insatiable, and Mia was ready to uncover what lay ahead, ready for her next chapter. As Mia wheeled herself away from the table, the applause echoed in her ears, becoming a mental drumbeat urging her forward. The unfamiliar man had risen from his seat, joining the students around him in a tide of appreciation. But within Mia, a tempest brokered between celebration and trepidation. That one question from the back of the room reverberated in her mind. How well did she really know the intricacies of experimentation? The momentary high faded into an enthusiasm alone wasn't enough. If she was to truly break barriers, she would need to bolster her knowledge and seek out practical experience in the scientific community. She'd see experimentation not from a distance, looking through the glass, but as an active participant, engaging in the trial and error of discovery. But how? That evening, with the soft hum of her laptop fan as a backdrop, Mia scoured the web for internship opportunities. She was met with thousands of options, but her heart sank at the towering prerequisites. The preferred skills listed sounded like an exhaustive checklist meant only for seasoned professionals. It gnawed at her. She knew the fear of inadequacy lurking beneath the surface. It was an old acquaintance. As she clicked through various postings, her initial excitement began to erode. But she stumbled upon a nonprofit organization focusing on accessible science education. Their mission aligned perfectly with her newfound enthusiasm for inclusion. Perhaps here was a gateway, not only to practice her passion, but to advocate for others who felt the constraints of circumstance. With a flicker of determination, she composed an email. "Dear Dr. Jenkins," she typed, her fingers flying over the keys as she expressed not just her desire to contribute, but also her unique perspective. "I want to marry scientific inquiry with advocacy for adaptive learning. I believe I have insights that may enrich your project." Then, eerily stillness settled over her mind as she hit send. It was a leap, a calculated risk to place her ambitions in the hands of someone else's judgment. A quiet moment unfolded, and Mia considered the implications of her choice. Would she be dismissed, or worse, patronized for her disability? A week trickled by, filled with self-doubt and contemplation of her next moves. Yet every time she revisited the thought of the nonprofit, a warmth ignited in her chest. She wanted to steer the conversation around disability and science, to shift perspectives towards possibilities rather than limitations. Then came the email. "Dear Mia, thank you for your heartfelt message. We'd like to invite you for an interview." The words blurred together for a heartbeat as her heart raced. This was it. The possibility of beginning a new chapter that melded her love for science with the advocacy she so fiercely believed in. In the subsequent days, preparation became second nature. Mia crafted a collection of questions that probed the organization's work and her potential role, and her confidence burgeoned with each simulated interview she performed in front of a mirror. She envisioned herself not just speaking, she saw herself embodying the very narrative she sought to change. On the day of the interview, however, anxiety coiled itself tightly around her heart. As she rolled into the office, a space cluttered with posters depicting scientists of all backgrounds, her palms glistened with perspiration. When Dr. Jenkins entered, an air of authority accompanied her, but it was the woman's warm smile that settled Mia's nerves. "Nice to meet you, Mia. I've wonderful things about your presentation," Dr. Jenkins offered, and for a moment the tension melted away. They talked about science and inclusion, and Mia incredulously found herself invested in the dialogue, asking questions, proposing ideas, and even challenging concepts. Yet a question lingered at the forefront of her thoughts. It was the realization that she was entering a new arena rife with uncertainty and comparison. Would she stand out? Would her voice be heard amid others vying for the same space? As their conversation turned toward expectations, Mia drew a breath, contemplating the balance of her capabilities against her perceived limitations. In that moment, she understood. This was not merely about whether she could measure up to others. This was about carving a niche that only she could fill. The interview flowed to a close, and just as Mia felt a surge of confidence, Dr. Jenkins posed a direct query that sliced through her bravado. "Mia, in light of our discussions, I have to ask, how will you handle the resistance you might face in this field?" Mia's cheeks tinged with heat. The question demanded an answer that weighed heavily on her experience and aspirations. How would she truly deal with it? As she pondered, she couldn't shake the sense that this moment contained a pivotal lesson for her journey. A flicker of determination ignited in her soul. "I'm ready to face it," she replied, surprising even herself with the unwavering firmness in her voice. "After all, I've already started breaking barriers." Little did Mia know, this resolute reply marked just the beginning of her confrontation with not only the world of science, but also with her own self-limiting beliefs. And as the interview concluded, a new horizon unfolded before her, a threshold teeming with challenges, revelations, and the possibility of reigniting her greatest passions. But there remained one final question simmering underneath the surface of her resolve. What would it truly take for her to rise and claim her space in this world? Mia strolled out of the office, her heart racing, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The interview had been more than a simple conversation. It felt like a transformative dance where she had led, countering expectations, taking risks, and stepping confidently into her narrative. The taste of possibility lingered, but with it came the familiar sting of uncertainty. Would she be offered the position? As she navigated through the bustling streets, the city seemed alive, echoing her internal upheaval. She recalled Dr. Jenkins's penetrating question: how would she handle resistance? The realization settled over her like a shroud. She had never backed down from scrutiny, but had she ever truly embraced the challenge of active confrontation? In her mind, Mia replayed every moment of the interview, that exhilarating flow between them. And yet, she recognized it wasn't just a matter of facing external pressures, it was also about dismantling the internal barriers she had forged over the years. The fear of inadequacy would rise again, but she had to prepare, honing her insights into tools for resilience. For days after, Mia remained preoccupied with her thoughts. The glimmer of excitement from that day faded as she sat in her apartment surrounded by textbooks and research papers. The parallels between dissecting theories in science and peeling back the layers of her own mindset gnawed at her. Each formula and principle she studied became an opportunity for revelation. Frustration built as she realized how limited her grasp still was on the complexities of adaptive learning technologies. She needed practical experience, not just theory. That night, instead of scrolling aimlessly through social media or obsessively checking her email, Mia made a decision. She would reach out to people in her network, her professors, fellow students, even industry professionals she had previously admired from afar. She had nothing to lose. As she constructed thoughtful LinkedIn messages and emails, each interaction felt like a mini experiment. Some responses were encouraging, while others felt decidedly cold. Yet with every rejection or unresponsive inbox, Mia discovered a resilience she didn't know she possessed. It dawned on her that every interaction was an opportunity, not just for networking, but for self-reflection and growth. Then came a breakthrough. A reply from a professor she had worked with during her undergraduate studies, Dr. Thompson, ignited a spark. "Mia, I remember your insights from our projects, and I see the trajectory of your passion. Why don't you join us for a seminar on inclusive science practices next month? We could always use more voices for our discussions." That single invitation felt pivotal, like finding a missing jigsaw piece. The seminar was an opportunity not just to learn, but to assert her place within the discourse, contribute with intent, and reinforce her burgeoning identity as a scholar in the field of accessible science. Mia plunged into preparation for the seminar, meticulously researching speakers and topics being discussed. The very act of preparing coaxed the nerves out of hiding. It felt like arming herself for a stimulating debate within an arena of ideas. Days flew by, and with her newfound focus, she transformed her anxiety into excited anticipation. As she prepared her contributions and questions for the panel, a new thought invaded her mind. This was no longer about merely surviving, this was about thriving and making her mark. On the day of the seminar, as she navigated among attendees, Mia visually mapped her surroundings. The professionals, the students, and varied individuals all collectively weaving into a vibrant tapestry of discourse. When she introduced herself and voiced her perspectives, she felt it resonate more deeply with the audience than she anticipated. Yet, as the panel concluded, Dr. Jenkins caught her eye. Mia's breath quickened as she approached. "I'm glad you decided to step forward, Mia. I think we could use someone like you on our team, someone who understands both the science and the lived experience," she said. The weight of those words affirmed everything Mia had been working toward. But beneath that affirmation simmered the unresolved tension of her question. Was she ready for the potential resistance she would encounter alongside acceptance? Her heart raced as she locked eyes with Dr. Jenkins, aware that the real work was still ahead. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the stakes rise. "I'm ready to take this on," she asserted once more. "Good," Dr. Jenkins replied, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "We'll see how ready you really are." As Mia left the seminar, the unmistakable charge of a new chapter resonated within her. A thought shadowed her resolve. Could she truly emerge with her voice refined, ready to claim her space in a world where the unexpected lurked at every corner? The days that followed the seminar were a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions for Mia. Each morning, she woke up with lingering excitement mixed with a tight knot of anxiety. Dr. Jenkins's words echoed in her mind. "We'll see how ready you really are," a challenge that sat heavily on her shoulders. She dove deeper into her studies, but now her focus shifted. Instead of merely absorbing theories, she began envisioning how to implement them in real-world applications. She meticulously crafted a personal project proposal centered around enhancing accessibility in learning environments, integrating methods she had researched into a coherent plan. This was not just academic, it was about creating real impact. Yet with each stroke of progress came waves of doubt. The question of whether her input would be valuable enough to warrant a position on Dr. Jenkins's team gnawed at her. Could her theoretical knowledge transform into practical solutions? Each time she felt momentum building, the fear of inadequacy clawed back, reminding her of every not quite there moment she had ever encountered. Mia transformed her apartment into a workshop. Walls plastered with notes and diagrams became her haven. The sense of creation sparked a level of optimism, energizing her spirits whenever frustration threatened to pull her down. She began to understand the different dimensions of resistance, both external from peers in her field and internal from her self-doubts. One evening, after a long day immersed in research, she thought back to her struggles in undergraduate classes. How had she navigated those challenges? Data collections that felt insurmountable had become manageable tasks through systematic breakdowns. Why should this project be any different? Quietly, she resolved to tackle her insecurities head-on. She reached out to Dr. Jenkins, requesting feedback on her proposal, fully aware that exposing her ideas could invite critique. It felt both terrifying and liberating. The impulse to withdraw clashed audibly with her newfound drive to engage. She finally sent the email, reassuring herself that sharing was a step toward growth. Days turned into what felt like a waiting game. Each hour felt like a lullaby of anxiety, while she balanced anticipation with restlessness. The ticking clock reminded her that time flowed indifferent to her apprehensions, and she had a choice: to wait silently or propel herself forward despite the unresolved tension that awaited her. Finally, a reply arrived. Mia's heart raced as she opened it. Dr. Jenkins had reviewed her proposal and was impressed by the depth of her analysis. However, she had some questions that reflected potential areas needing refinement. "This is an excellent foundation, Mia. I'd like to discuss your ideas further. There's potential here, but we need to ensure the practicalities are just as robust as your theoretical insights." The mix of validation and critique sent Mia into a tailspin of emotion. Joy surged through her. She was being taken seriously. But simultaneously, that familiar voice of doubt whispered ominously, tainting her excitement with fear. What if she couldn't answer Dr. Jenkins's questions? What if the flaws in her proposal pointed to deeper inadequacies? As she contemplated the upcoming meeting, a plan began to form. Mia knew this was more than a discussion. This was a chance to confront her doubts and affirm her place within the project and, ultimately, her career. Empowered by that insight, she mapped out her responses to anticipated critiques, arming herself with both knowledge and a clear vision for how her thoughts could contribute to real, meaningful change. The day of the meeting arrived. Mia stood before the mirror, adjusting her blazer. A deep breath steadied her resolve, reminding her of her journey thus far, the moments of self-doubt, the urgency of growth, and the goal she wanted to reach. As she walked toward Dr. Jenkins's office, the stakes intensified. This meeting had shifted in purpose. No longer a mere presentation, it was the threshold between her aspirations and the tangible path she wished to carve out in the world of adaptive learning technologies. Before she knocked, a final thought struck her. In confronting her resistance, she was poised to redefine her narrative, embracing any outcome as part of her growing identity. And while she had prepared passionately, she felt the lingering presence of uncertainty. The moment of truth loomed as she knocked, her heart pounding like a war drum. With each step deeper into the office, she realized she wasn't just stepping forward for herself. She was claiming her space in a realm that demanded authenticity amid complexity. Would she emerge not just acknowledged, but affirmed as an essential contributor? The stakes were high, and Mia was fully aware. Now came the time to rise. The door swung open, revealing Dr. Jenkins at her desk, framed by a wall of books and an air of authority. Mia's heart raced as she entered, each beat echoing the weight of expectation. Dr. Jenkins smiled warmly, but Mia felt the gravitational pull of scrutiny in the air. "Glad you could make it, Mia. I've been looking forward to our discussion," Dr. Jenkins said, gesturing for Mia to take a seat. As she settled into the chair, the initial thrill of validation quickly morphed into familiar anxiety. She reminded herself that this was a space for collaboration, not judgment. "Let's dive in," Dr. Jenkins prompted, her gaze appraising yet encouraging. "You presented some intriguing concepts in your proposal, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on a few key areas." Mia nodded, resolutely pushing aside the lurking self-doubt. She began outlining her ideas with clarity and conviction, articulating how her research addressed pressing needs for accessibility. The words poured from her mouth, echoing the enthusiasm she had tapped into during those long nights of study. Each point she made felt like a small victory, a tangible affirmation that her ideas held value. But as they progressed, the questions became more challenging. How do you plan to test the effectiveness of your proposed solutions? What data will you collect? For a moment, panic threatened to consume her. She had anticipated these questions, but hadn't fully prepared for their depth. Fighting the urge to falter, Mia took a deep breath, remembering that silence could be just as powerful as a well-articulated response. "I've sketched out a few pilot program designs," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "By implementing them in specific educational settings, I can gather qualitative and quantitative feedback on how well the solutions function in real classrooms. As the words resonated with her, she felt a swell of confidence. Every challenge was not a blockade, it was a stepping stone. Dr. Jenkins leaned back in her chair, scribbling notes. "Interesting approach," she said, "but let's address some of the potential limitations you might face. How do you plan to ensure buy-in from educators and institutions? Change can often meet resistance, and you'll need a strategy to navigate that." Mia paused, wrestling internally with that valid concern. Yes, the prospect of resistance was daunting, but it could also be an opportunity for dialogue. "I envision hosting workshops and training sessions to outline the benefits," she offered. "Building relationships and fostering understanding is essential. If educators see the impact of these solutions firsthand, they might become advocates instead of adversaries." Dr. Jenkins' expression softened, reflecting a glimmer of respect. "That's a significant insight. Remember, effective communication is as crucial as the solutions themselves." Mia found herself hanging on Dr. Jenkins's words. This was not just a meeting, it was a validation of her beliefs, punctuated by moments of stark realization. She was not merely defending her proposal, she was defining her place in this field. Yet each compliment from Dr. Jenkins felt like a thread pulling at the fabric of her confidence, threatening to unravel if not managed carefully. As they wrapped up, Dr. Jenkins articulated her impression. "You have raw potential, Mia, but recognize that building a career in this field requires more than knowledge. You'll need resilience. This project can be your launch pad, but remember, it's the foundation of a much greater endeavor." Mia left the office energized yet apprehensive, the gravity of Dr. Jenkins's words settling in her core. With every question and every piece of feedback, she felt herself expanding like a balloon filled with air, equal parts exhilarating and nerve-wracking. As she walked home, the city buzzed around her, but her mind raced with thoughts of the future. Was she truly ready to embrace the challenges ahead? Would she rise to meet them or backtrack into the cocoon of safety she once relied on? The crossroads had materialized, and the path diverged ahead with ambiguity and promise. At that moment, she resolved to harness the momentum from her meeting. Mia knew the road was loaded with trials, but she no longer felt aimless. There was purpose fueling her now, the burning need to prove herself, not just to Dr. Jenkins, but to herself. A singular question echoed loudly in her mind. Would she step boldly into her destiny or shrink back in fear? As the sun set on her walk home, the shadows twisted around her thoughts, encouraging a single notion. The journey was just beginning, and it dared her to uncover what truly lay beneath the surface of her aspirations. Tomorrow, she would seek clarity on her next steps. Today, she would allow the anticipation to kindle her resolve. And somewhere in that closing embrace of twilight, a new quest awaited her, one that might redefine everything she thought she knew about her abilities and potential. Mia awoke the next morning to a brilliant sun spilling through her window, illuminating the room with an optimistic glow that contrasted starkly with her swirling thoughts. An unsettling mixture of excitement and trepidation coursed through her. It was time to act on the inspiration ignited during her meeting with Dr. Jenkins. The challenge before her was daunting, yet it also buzzed with an exhilarating promise of growth. She brewed coffee, allowing the rich aroma to fill the space while running through the checklist in her mind. Today, she would start forming a tangible strategy for her pilot program, gathering resources and insights from the network of educators she had cultivated over the years. Each action needed to be calculated, intentional. If she could harness the potential of her research and effectively communicate its value, she would not just be advocating for a project, she would be advocating for a change in the educational landscape. After a few minutes of deliberation, Mia reached for her laptop, fingers poised over the keyboard. She needed to create an outline for her initial workshop: goals, structure, content, and then potential feedback mechanisms. Writing was the easiest part for her,
Ideas flowed like water. But the real challenge lay ahead in engaging educators who often felt overwhelmed by their existing frameworks. It brought forth a nagging doubt. Would they see her not just as a student with ideas, but as a peer with shared goals? She pushed thoughts of self-doubt aside, reminding herself of Dr. Jenkins's encouragement. Mia understood the necessity of resilience, yet the specter of resistance loomed large in her mind. It urged her to rethink her approach, to adapt her strategy rather than view obstacles as immutable barriers. Determined, she decided to reach out to a few trusted educators from her previous college experiences. After crafting a brief but compelling email inviting them to discuss her proposal, she hit send. Each click was a small leap of faith, a deliberate step into the unknown. That afternoon, Mia met with Sarah, one of her former professors, whose passion for educational transformation was well known. They convened at a cozy cafe, its walls decorated with local art, which altered the mood of their conversation. As they exchanged pleasantries, Mia felt the familiar stirrings of her previous self-doubt begin to surface again, but she quickly silenced them, focusing instead on the potential impact of their discussion. "What you're aiming for is ambitious," Sarah said, her voice steady but laced with curiosity. "Why do you think this particular approach will resonate with educators?" Mia felt a pulse of clarity surge through her. "I believe it's about creating real impact rather than just theoretical solutions. Sharing first-hand accounts of how accessibility tools can transform learning experiences makes it relatable, personal. Once they see it can work in their classrooms, they'll be more inclined to support change." As Sarah nodded thoughtfully, a moment of realization struck Mia. She was no longer just a passive observer in these discussions. She was a participant. The exchange was dynamic, a dialogue where her ideas mattered. This sense of belonging buoyed her spirit. After their brainstorming session, Sarah offered to connect Mia with another educator specializing in curriculum development. "Networking is your weapon," Sarah said, her eyes twinkling. "Use it wisely." Mia left the cafe energized by the conversation, and a new sense of urgency coalesced within her. If she was truly going to make headway, she must pursue these connections with vigor, but also prioritize building her confidence. On the way home, she couldn't escape the whisper of doubt, though it was faint and more manageable now. What if her ideas were too radical? What if educators weren't ready for change? That night, her mind raced with possibilities, but also with a newfound resolve. She began drafting a more detailed workshop outline, allowing her thoughts to spill onto the page, weaving together her vision with practical steps. Each word was an effort to solidify her commitment to this path. As the hours slipped away into the night, fatigue set in, but the glow of possibility kept her awake. She realized that every trial faced would incrementally strengthen her. When she finally retired to bed, the questions continued to swirl, but beneath them simmered a belief. She could navigate this journey, chart untraced waters, and voice dreams others might not dare to articulate. Tomorrow would bring a new meeting, a new connection to pursue. This moment would define the course of her quest. Unbeknownst to her, someone was waiting in the wings with answers that could unravel everything she thought she understood. Would they help her navigate the labyrinth of educational dynamics, or would they be yet another barrier to confront? The next morning unfolded under a veil of uncertainty, the air tinged with anticipation. Mia could hardly contain the nervous excitement bubbling within her as she prepared for a pivotal meeting that could shift the trajectory of her pilot program. She dressed carefully, choosing a pair of tailored pants and a crisp blouse, wanting to project professionalism and confidence. Each small detail mattered. She needed to embody the essence of the change she advocated. As she made her way to the location, a charming co-working space nestled in a vibrant part of town, her thoughts oscillated between excitement and a gnawing anxiety. How would she present her ideas? Would this esteemed educator truly understand her vision?
The ticking clock in her mind seemed louder than the bustling streets around her. Arriving early, Mia took a moment to breathe. The space hummed with energy, a blend of voices engaged in creative exchanges. This environment felt vital, just like the change she sought to ignite. She visualized the impact of her program, and for a fleeting moment, it grounded her. When her meeting partner, Mr. Thompson, finally arrived, his presence exuded calm authority. He was a well-respected figure in curriculum development, someone whose insights could elevate her project. But there was also a part of Mia that shrunk back, grappling with her inadequacies. This wasn't just another professor. This was someone whose opinions could genuinely shape her initiative. "Thank you for meeting with me," Mia began, her voice unwavering despite the tremor of nerves crawling up her spine. "I appreciate the opportunity to discuss my workshop concept." As Mia explained her vision, she noticed Mr. Thompson's perceptive gaze and the way his brow furrowed in concentration. With each key point she articulated, goals, content structure, potential impact, she felt the weight of her insecurities lift ever so slightly. It wasn't just her passion that resonated, it was the conviction behind her proposals. However, tucked beneath her enthusiasm was the persistent question: was it enough? "What about the resistance you anticipate from educators?" Mr. Thompson probed, his eyes narrowing with interest. Change is often met with trepidation, especially in established environments. Her pulse quickened at the mention of resistance. "That's a pivotal part of my strategy," Mia replied, choosing her words carefully. "By framing this as a shared exploration rather than a mandatory shift, I aim to make them see the value of accessibility tools as real solutions. It's important they see how it can improve their teaching experience and their students' learning outcomes." As they continued their dialogue, Mia's confidence built. Each time she responded to Mr. Thompson's questions, she felt more grounded in her knowledge and her mission. She began to recognize how her unique perspective, a blend of being a learner, an advocate, and a future educator, wasn't a liability but an asset. The meeting reached a turning point when Mr. Thompson offered his insights on practical implementations and potential pitfalls. Mia's mind raced, absorbing his advice with gratitude. This was not merely a one-way exchange. Here was an opportunity for collaborative growth, a valuable partnership that could drive her project forward. By the end of the conversation, Mia felt exhilarated, as if she had shed layers of doubt that had clung to her. "I would love to follow up with additional resources based on our discussion today," she stated, emboldened by her newfound voice. Walking out into the sunlight, a flicker of determination ignited within her. Mia realized that each connection she forged felt like a stepping stone across the river of uncertainty. She was no longer just a young advocate, she was evolving into a leader, ready to challenge the conventions surrounding education. However, as she turned her thoughts toward the practicalities of her workshop outline, the voice of doubt returned with renewed vigor. What if collaborating with Mr. Thompson led to high expectations that she couldn't meet? What if the more she connected, the more exposed her vulnerabilities became? With her heart still racing, Mia decided to reach out to Sarah for more feedback. But as she pulled her phone from her pocket, another message pinged. A new connection had reached out, and the potential implications of that unexpected contact sent a rush of anxiety through her. What had they discovered about her? And would their insights further complicate her journey? Or would they illuminate paths she had yet to consider? Mia took a deep breath and stepped onto the next part of her pathway, determined to find out. Mia's heart raced as she read the notification on her screen. The name attached to the message held weight, an industry expert who had built a reputation for their innovative approach to educational inclusivity. She hesitated for a moment, rapidly weighing the possibilities. This could either be an invaluable opportunity or an intimidating hurdle. The implications of a connection like this rattled her. What if they expected too much from her? What could they want? With resolve, she opened the message. Hi, Mia. I came across your workshop concept and found it intriguing. I'd love to discuss your ideas further. Are you available for a brief chat? Her pulse quickened, excitement battling with doubt. Was this a chance to be seen and understood, or just another moment of vulnerability laid bare? Her eyes darted to the clock. Time felt elastic, stretching and compressing as she considered how to respond. Mia quickly typed a reply, suggesting a time for a meeting that accommodated both their schedules. She needed to navigate this with a mix of professionalism and authenticity. Each interaction felt like a bridge, some well-structured, others shaky. But this one held the possibility of creating a solid foundation. As she hit send, her phone buzzed again, and panic surged within her. The message from Sarah was waiting. "I've been thinking about your meeting with Mr. Thompson. Let's go over your workshop strategy together before you follow up." Instinctively, Mia felt drawn to her friend's request, craving the reassurance and insight that came from Sarah's perspective. Over the next hour, they connected virtually, and Mia laid out the concept of her workshop, detailing the structure and challenges she anticipated. Sarah listened intently, interjecting with thoughtful questions that forced Mia to reflect deeper on her intentions. For Mia, each of her friend's inquiries felt like a gentle nudge to examine her confidence as she articulated her purpose, a process that revealed elements of her vision she hadn't fully recognized until now. "Why did you choose this path, Mia? What drives you?" Sarah's question landed squarely, prompting Mia to confront her personal motivations. "I want to reshape how educators engage with accessibility tools," Mia responded, her voice stronger than before. "It's not just about compliance or obligation. It's about empowerment, both for teachers and students." In that moment, something shifted within her. The clarity of her mission crystallized, illuminating the underlying hope she had for the initiative. It wasn't simply about the program, it was about the entire educational landscape. She was fueled by a vision to open doors that had long remained closed. As their conversation wrapped up, Mia felt a newfound clarity bubbling inside. She was starting to recognize the potential of her own voice in these discussions. With this emerging sense of purpose, could she possibly inspire that same awakening in others? What if her unique approach could challenge entrenched beliefs, ask vital questions, or spark transformative discussions among educators? Yet a shadow of fear crept back in. What would happen if the leaders of the educational community resisted her ideas? How would she handle the backlash from those accustomed to conventional methods? These concerns swirled in her mind as she sat in the fading light of her living room. She couldn't shake the unease that accompanied ambitious aspirations. The message from the industry expert lingered in her mind, fueling a restlessness that inspired both courage and trepidation. Determined to shift her focus from fear to action, Mia crafted a follow-up message to the expert, recognizing this as a pivotal moment, a chance to engage not just with their expertise, but to explore collaborative solutions. Suddenly, the weight of self-doubt loomed. What if her outreach resulted in yet another expectation she couldn't fulfill? The thought paralyzed her momentarily, forcing her to confront the fact that uncertainty was a constant. It defined her journey. But as she pressed into her uncertainties, resolve took root. The next steps were calling to her, and she couldn't afford to let fear dictate her journey any longer. Mia took a deep breath, prepared to embrace whatever revelations lay ahead, knowing the path of growth demanded resilience. Just as she contemplated the best way to articulate her response, an unexpected notification lit up her phone screen. The expert had replied. Heart racing, she opened the message, knowing everything could change in an instant. Would they challenge her, inspire her, or set a tone of collaboration she desperately sought? In that crucial moment, Mia stood on the threshold of possibility, ready to step forward. Her story still unwritten, but the adventure beginning to unfold. Mia awoke the next morning infused with determination. The night had transformed her anxieties into solid resolve. She understood that she had triumphed over many barriers already, yet a vast horizon of challenges still awaited. The message from the industry expert lingered in her mind like a spark, pushing her forward into an unknown but exciting realm. It was time for action, not just participation. After preparing her breakfast, she revisited her proposal documents. Each page glimmered with potential, a mixture of rigor and passion waited to be unleashed. If she was going to engage the educational community deeply, she needed to explore practical and innovative ways to present her concepts. Her self-doubt had simmered down to a quiet background noise, allowing her voice of conviction to surface. Mia sat at her dining table, armed with her laptop and a stack of notepads. She envisioned her workshop, but this time with a sharper perspective. Instead of simply covering the logistical descriptions of accessible tools, she pivoted to addressing their direct impacts, showcasing real-life student testimonials, integrating interactive demonstrations, and weaving in strategies that echoed the educator's real needs. Universal design for learning was no longer just a concept. It was a foundation she wanted to help everyone understand and embrace. With each keystroke, the motivations behind her choices became clearer. The focus shifted from her insecurities to what she could contribute. She reflected on how her own experiences within the educational system provided her with a unique lens, one that few could offer. This idea felt liberating and empowering. As the morning morphed into afternoon, Mia received a notification. The industry expert had agreed to meet. She took a deep breath, relishing the flurry of excitement that coursed through her. Not only did she affirm her position as a passionate advocate for inclusivity in education, but now her voice was valued enough to inspire and influence others. The meeting came quickly. Mia entered the virtual call with an air of professionalism, each detail of her background carefully curated to inspire confidence. The expert was everything she had imagined: knowledgeable, insightful, and approachable. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said, her heart racing but her voice steady. They delved into a conversation rich with exploration, probing Mia's ideas and discussing their potential implications for educational practice. These were not the judgments of a skeptical audience, but the inquisitive musings of a mentor eager to cultivate her potential. "Your enthusiasm is infectious," the expert remarked, "but how can you ensure your program remains sustainable in the long term?" In that moment, Mia felt the weight of her journey crystallizing into a singular thought. She wasn't preparing to merely present, she was positioning herself as an agent of change. "It will be about building partnerships," she asserted, her voice firm with conviction. "Bridging gaps between educational stakeholders will foster an ecosystem of innovation and shared responsibility." The expert nodded, impressed by Mia's outlook. Encouraged by their positive exchange, she shared her insights openly, keenly aware of how each moment built upon her previous interactions. As their conversation unfolded, she recognized the tangible growth that had taken place within her. She was no longer the hesitant girl curled in her wheelchair wrestling with doubt. She was an emerging professional capable of commanding her narrative. As the meeting wrapped up, the expert posed a pivotal question. "Mia, are you ready to take this program and pitch it to a wider audience? What would be your first step?" Mia's mind raced, adrenaline coursing through her. This was it, the moment to leap beyond theory into action. "I will organize a pilot workshop for educators in my network. This will serve as feedback and refinement for the full program." There was clarity in her voice, and as she spoke, she could feel the confidence radiating from her being. They discussed timelines and actionable steps, a roadmap for Mia's aspirations forming under collaborative guidance. When the meeting concluded, a sense of euphoria washed over her. The long journey of transformation had solidified into concrete opportunities. She recognized the profound shift in her identity. No longer a passive figure defined by her limitations, she was now a conscientious driver of change, ready to challenge biases with knowledge, compassion, and determination. Days swirled into weeks as Mia actualized her plans. The pilot workshop she designed brought together a community of educators eager to explore accessible science education. The event was bustling, with attendees engaging in the practical demonstrations she had meticulously curated. As educators actively participated, the initial skepticism shattered, replaced by enthusiasm and curiosity. Mia stood at the center, fielding questions, providing insights, and witnessing her vision manifest into tangible reality. Their shared laughter and discussions birthed camaraderie, and for the first time, she felt their collective purpose converge around her initiatives. After the workshop, she observed the feedback forms stacked on her desk. Each pen stroke expressed gratitude, admiration, and readiness to embrace change. Mia enveloped herself in the warmth of the responses, feeling the validation she had long sought. This was not merely her achievement. It belonged to everyone she had inspired through her journey. They recognized not just the value of accessible education, but the potential resident within everyone, including those like her. Mia's recognition extended beyond her immediate circle. Dr. Jenkins reached out a few days later with an incredible opportunity. She had proposed Mia as a speaker at an upcoming conference focused on educational transformation and inclusivity. A wave of exhilaration mixed with disbelief rushed through her. This was her chance to share her story on a much larger stage, advocating for science education while embodying everything she had worked to achieve. As she prepared her presentation, Mia reflected on her past, the timid girl in the wheelchair who had almost let doubt define her fate. Each step she took along this journey became a reminder of her perseverance. She now stood confidently on the precipice of something extraordinary, ready to inspire not only those who faced barriers, but anyone striving to break through their own. The conference day dawned bright and warm. A sea of faces awaited her. As she took the stage, with the spotlight illuminating her, Mia felt a sense of unity between her experiences and the hopes of those in the audience. With a steady voice infused with authentic passion, she shared her journey, the doubts, the breakthroughs, and the immense potential for change that lay within inclusive education. Mia felt the weight of her responsibilities, but she also relished the joy of authentic connection. As she concluded, the applause resounded, a powerful affirmation of her growth. Mia had transformed. She was now not just an advocate, she was a catalyst for change whose message resonated deeply within a new community. In that moment, surrounded by the energy of possibility, she understood that the journey was never truly over. Every moment ahead held new challenges and opportunities, but she was ready to face them head-on, armed with resilience, a fierce spirit, and a vision capable of reshaping the future. It was time for them all to rise, and Mia was prepared to lead the charge. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, make a real difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts are crucial. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support genuine transformative content.